Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com, BidamountLive.com, and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is October 8th, 2021. It's Friday. And every Friday, as you know, we do a weekly video on what's been going on in the Asian art and Chinese, Japanese art market, Korean art if it comes up. And auctions here and there and around the world, the major auction houses on eBay, Catawiki, and so forth. And it's been sort of a busy week. As many of you have already seen, we did the Christie's Asia Week auction report on Wednesday. The auction results there, they were just as good as Sotheby's. They had some very, very strong sales. The cloisonne from the Springfield Museum did extremely well. Everything did fine. Overall, they should be very satisfied with the sale. A couple of things fell through the cracks. It didn't sell at all, but that's the world of auctions, I guess. But it was interesting. And next week we're going to try and we'll get the bottoms run out. And there is a sale, I mentioned in the video Wednesday, I think I mentioned it Wednesday, there's a sale coming up in early November over in Hong Kong that's interesting, of Imperial Porcelain. And there's an online sale that we're going to talk about here in a minute over at Christie's that's on the global member pages, and a London sale at Bottoms. Okay, there's some nice things. I want to go through them with you, worth looking at. But before I get too far into it here, I wanted to mention something. Yesterday I was poking around, I'm always looking for things to include in the on the newsletter page each week, and I came across this video, and it's called "The Delhi Hoard in the Eye of Archaeologists." And the title doesn't really tell you what it's about, but what it's about is that about 50 years ago, a discovery, or 50, 60 years ago, they became aware of a huge amount of Yuan porcelain over in Delhi, India. There was, you may not know it, but a lot of Yuan blue and white was shipped into India more than anywhere else, and it was destroyed. And a lot of it was broken, and they don't really know why, but it got buried, and then it was dug up, and they found it. It was found, I guess, by the landscapers at the palace or something. They explain it in the video. It's worth watching. And they're now undertaking a project to restore the pieces and to study their history. And this fellow up here, his name is Stephen Gaskin, and he lives here in New England. He's active with the Museum of Fine Arts. I think he's a visiting fellow there. And I communicated with him yesterday about the video. I thought it was, well, I liked it a lot. I watched the thing, and they talk about how this lode was discovered. And those of you who are familiar with John Carswell, who used to be at Sotheby's, who's a big fan of blue and white porcelain. He wrote the book a book on Chinese blue and white. He's apparently a friend of Steve's, and there's a bit in there about that connection and what they're doing to preserve these shards, which are so important to the history of the Yuan, because Yuan was the first true blue and white porcelain, and there's so little of it around, and they found all these pieces. Some of the shards are pretty big. They're like 3/4 of the piece is there. So and some of them are absolutely beautifully decorated. And it turns out that Mr. Gaskin was a shard collector himself, and he gave 900, I was surprised to hear this, over the years he'd collected 900 pieces of Yuan dynasty shards, and he donated them to the museum in Beijing, which was awfully nice. But at any rate, watch the video. It'll be posted on the newsletter page, and it was put out by the Hong Kong Society of Asia, the Asia Society of Hong Kong, I should say. And it's a fairly new channel. It's only been around, I looked at it, it's only been around for about a year. They publish stuff fairly regularly, all kinds of sort of interesting stuff, some quirky stuff too. And subscribe to it. You can subscribe to it when you watch the video. All right, they need subscribers. They only have about 1,400 subscribers, and you subscribe to it. I think you might get something out of it. It looked worthwhile, and they all seem like very, very nice people. So give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. It'll be embedded over on the newsletter page, right next to the weekly videos. Right in this area here. I'll figure out a way to get them all in there. All right, now, let's see what else is happening here. Oh, there was a bunch of sales, as I mentioned, during the summer, as we've talked about many times, the auctions sort of quiet down, and then in September things start to build up again. Well, they're building up again. and there are sales popping up all over the place. And we updated the newsletter page, the global member pages this week on the regular days, and we threw in some other stuff in between. We didn't make an update the notification that we had updated the page. We just went ahead and did it. But at any rate, these are at Doyle's. Doyle's coming up in 4 days. If you're anywhere near New York and you like Chinese export furniture, get yourself over to Doyle's. All right, because they have two, and they're not a pair, but two really nice China trade, late 18th, maybe early 20th century, but they look to be pretty much just late 18th century gilt lacquer tables with removable tray tops. These are nice. And beautiful quality based on English form, Queen Anne legs and all that, with a lift off tray tops, little drawers running across the front of it. Here's another view of it. This is an elegant looking table, and the estimate is very modest, $2,000 to $3,000. This is the kind of stuff you see at the PBD Essex Museum. Beautiful things. They have that one, and they have another one here, this one, which is also very, very elegant, decorated slightly differently, same estimate, same period, just slightly different style, and I suspect they came from the same house, and they were probably in a room together, being displayed as a sort of an assembled pair. The legs are basically the overall shape and form is basically the same, again with a removable tray top. The other one has 3 drawers. This has 2 drawers, but has this wonderful scrolling pattern that you see, like you see on carved lacquer. Absolutely great. And again, $2,000 to $3,000 for the pair. For the table. So conceivably you could buy them both for $6,000-$7,000 and really have, what a presentation they'd make in a hallway or at the end of a living room. Good thing to put your vases on. All right, you remember you need nice tables and things to put your stuff on. So why not a great looking Chinese export table? Good looking. All right, and then over here to this, Christie's has an online sale, and one of the things they have in there that caught my eye were these. Is nice looking pair of Femi-Veron biscuit foo lines, a male and a female, and these are nice size. They're 13 inches tall. Go in and get a condition report on them, but boy, they're good looking. And estimated at $2,000 to $3,000. I think the opening bid on them was something in the order of $1,000 or something, a $1,200 opening bid. I don't think there's probably a big reserve on them, but leave bids on these things. These are terrific. And Christie's and all 3 of the big auction houses increasingly are getting very interested in online only auctions. So get used to it. And then this, a pair of Chinese Amari serving wares, Kangxi period, all of it. And these bear the label of Eleanor Gordon on the back. And those of you who have been around for any length of time know who Eleanor Gordon was. She was a wonderful dealer that was in business for decades on decades and decades. She was the true dealer. She was selling Chinese porcelain, way into her 80s and 90s. I don't even know how old she was when she passed away. She was a very nice lady. I met her a number of times. She actually knew my mother also, because my mother used to go to the Ellis show in Boston and got to know Eleanor and bought some things from her. And she was really, really nice. She was always very, very welcoming in her booth. And she was from Pennsylvania. She was a terrific lady. She wrote books. She loved what she did. And she's a tough dealer, though. Wow. And but she had good things, and this is a lot, and it's very nice. There are 3 platters, including the one under the tureen. You have a charger up here. You've got a very nice gravy boat with its original under tray, and this little covered sort of palm jar here. All right, all Kangxi period. The estimate is $4,000 to $6,000, which is perfectly reasonable, and I think the opening bid on this was around $2,000. All right, so if you're a dealer, do the math on this. I think there might be some points where you can make some money with it. If you're a dealer and if you're a collector, buy it. It's great. It's a nice thing because it looks just like it's done very much the way the Japanese did Amari. It looks a lot like this is what the Japanese copied early on. Early Japanese Amari were copies of things like this plate. This plate here. This is the kind of thing they did. When they learned how to make porcelain, because of course they didn't learn to make porcelain until long after the Chinese, until the late 1500s was when they did their first porcelain, and they really didn't get into any serious production for another 70 years after that. So there you are. Anyway, in the Arita area, in Amari. And then there's this, a great big pair of these sort of slab construct Famille Rose vases, 1770s, 1780s, but beautifully done. And these are that form, they're always pretty big. These are good size also. These are 18 inches tall for the pair. 18 and a half inches tall overall. And in the past, we've seen these sell. Single ones like this and this size can sell for almost what the low estimate is here, $5,000-$6,000 sometimes. So we'll see where these goes. You're getting a pair. Beautifully done. Estimate $5,000 to $8,000. I think the opening bid is around $2,000 or $3,000 on them. This sale is in 10 days in New York, and there's no other information on them. But at any rate, if you like Chinese export and you want an elegant big pair of vases to put on a mantle or at the end of a sideboard, these are it. These would look great. And then there's this lot. Speaking of lots, you have a Kangxi. This is a cool lot. Very interesting Kangxi period plate at the top, with overglazed reds and gilt with underglazed blue. Those are the only colors used here. The blue is a beautiful tone, particularly beautiful, clear, pure cobalt with these fish. I love this. The fish are sort of, here are the waves, and fish are sort of floating around the outside. Here's a red one. I like that. And these flowers and all these aquatic plants, and then the waves rolling. And then in the middle are all these little, grassy plants and ducks and so forth. And the plate is molded with a shaped rim. Nice looking dish. And then with it is a Kendi, a Wanli bottle, and what looks to be a hookah base. But a fairly rare piece of Kangxi porcelain, Chinese Amari Kangxi period porcelain, with this cobalt band that still has traces of gilt on it. But this looks like a pretty rare bird. This one, it looks like it was probably made for the for the Indian or Middle Eastern market. It's based on a metal form, presumably, in the whole lot. And I think the opening bid on this lot is if I remember, I think it was $1,200 opening bid, and estimated $3,000 to $5,000. And as we know, if you break it down, I mean, this bottle typically brings, these sell for, $1,600 to $2,400. The Kendis sell for $1,300 to $1,800. So that pretty much covers your estimate. And then you have this very, very attractive plate, which is probably worth another $600, $500 to $600, somewhere in there. And then you have this bottle, which is sort of a wild card. And you got to go look that up and find out how rare this is, because I think it's fairly rare. That's just my gut feeling on it, and that could be worth $2,000 or $3,000. So if you're a dealer, do the math, break it down, and there may be a profit in here at some point. Or if you're a collector and you've been looking for a rare form like this piece here, buy it, sell off these three, and keep that one, and you probably end up owning it for close to free. All right. That's Peter math. That's how I do things. That's how I think. All right, now on to this. This is over at Carlo Bonti's sale. A pair of cobalt ground with gilt decoration, 18th century mallet vases. They could be Kangxi period. They're absolutely 18th century, but they could be Kangxi period. But they're nice size. They're about 14 inches tall each. They look to be in good condition. As always, get a condition report, but the estimate's very modest. 1,500 to 2,000 euros. All right. Now, one of the things I hear from people often, and it's a fair thing to say, when you're buying over in Belgium or the Netherlands or in Italy or Spain, anywhere, and especially if you're in the United States, you have to calculate in the cost of shipping and all the little stuff that gets tacked on. So read the terms and conditions very carefully, and really look into the shipping costs. Because I had a phone call today, not a phone call, but I got an email from a man this week, a very nice guy, and he's sort of heartbroken because he bought a vase in the U.S. at Heineman's that was 15 or so inches tall, something like that. And the problem was he lives in Australia. And those of you that have done any shipping know what that means. It means that it's going to cost a fortune to ship that to Australia, because Australia has this absurdly low box requirement, size for boxes. They can't be more than 72 inches girth and height. combined. So what it ended up costing was I forget what he paid for the vase, $400 or $500. The shipping from Heineman's to Australia was going to be $800 through the U.S. Postal Service's their GXS or GSX program, because Australia has this silly arbitrary limit on box sizes, which really kills trade down there. It really does, especially in the antique business. It's just brutal. It's just brutal. I think Malaysia or someplace has a similar sort of makes no sense requirement. But at any rate, so always check where you are, what the shipping is going to be. Don't say, well, it shouldn't be much. Find out in advance before you place a bid, and then calculate all that in before you place your bid. All right, because everybody has to do it, so it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up in the end spending a total of more money than anybody else. It's just that you'll know what it is, and you'll know not to overshoot the thing and end up, with a huge shipping bill and all these extra fees you forgot about. Just a little tip. All right, and then over here, this sale just came up. It closes and it starts in 4 days in Paris. If you're in Paris and you like Japanese and Korean stuff, get yourself over to Tijan's. All right, Tijan is a wonderful auction house, by the way. If you've never been there, the lady that runs it's a peach, and they have nice people. I was there some years ago, and they were. I was introduced to them, and they couldn't have been more cordial. They were very, very nice people, and they had an interesting sale going on. They had a lot of Chinese stuff when I was there, and they had a great early Chinese rug that I absolutely loved. And we're staying in the city and at a family member's home, and so we wandered over there for the day and looked around. And then we went all back over all through the Dro and all that. It was really fun, but nice auction house, easy to deal with. And so if you're in Paris, get yourself over there and do some looking, leave some bids, because it's a good looking auction. And out to Asia, and it's all Japanese stuff from what I could see. They have a nice selection of early Japanese mass, okimono, netskis, and all that. I've already got in touch with one of our regular inquiry guys that uses the identification system program all the time. He lives in Paris, and I sent him a note and said, get over to, he loves this stuff, get over to Tijan's. And because he likes Korean and Japanese stuff, and this is the kind of material they have. Some interesting, very cool stuff. I like the Mei Ping vase. It looks period to me. €3,000 to €5,000 estimate, 12th, 13th century. This very unusual, but in big, 10-inch. It looks like a cup. It's actually 10 inches Korean bowl, 16th century, blue and white, early 17th century. And then these nice Japanese pottery pieces. You've got a hand warmer, incense burner, and a very cool misusashi with underglazed blue decoration, lacquer top, and all that business. Coming down, Hirado ware, nice Nabeshima cup. All right, nice looking piece of blue and white Japanese with the celadon, so like a footed stand. And then you have. What else is here? I love their cattle. I love the way they shoot their pictures. Yeah, we have all of this. What's on page 2? Oh yeah, more all right, there's more porcelain. Also baskets. If you like Ikebana baskets and all that, they've got some nice ones. This one in particular I like a lot, with the big loop handle on it, and some very nice pieces of lacquer to boot. So give that a look, especially if you're anywhere near Paris. You want to get in there. It's the best way to buy there. Just go in and buy it. Leave a bid and buy it. All right, now what's happening over on eBay? They had a pretty good week. There were some interesting things up there. That Famille Rose vase with the mechanical, the revolving vase that had the damage. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now that's doing it. It hasn't sold yet. There's this little shell form dish with an old gallery label. It's funny. These used to be more expensive. They were $350, $400 a piece, and they're now selling it for some reason at $182. This is a fairly standard one. This is a particular type that you see fairly often if you see them, and but still $182 for a nice piece of early 18th century. For the export market, very, very nice. And then this was probably one of the little bargains of the week. Kangxi period Chinese Amari teapot went for $76. You know, the old line, leave a bid, and I know why it brought $76, because people saw that it had a repaired lid top to it, and they said, it's you know, it's going to bring too much money because it's Kangxi and this and that. $76 was not too much money for this, and it had a break in the top of the lid right here. You can see the crack, old lid. It's what happens to these things. People put them down and they get damaged, and somebody very nicely glued it back together. But you could get that cleaned up. It wouldn't be too expensive to get it fixed, really. And it was otherwise, the pot itself was in very, very good shape. Had a couple of tiny nicks on the tip of the spout, which is pretty typical on these teapots. You always want to check the tip of the spout, where the spout connects to the body. These are the critical areas because they can be broken there, and where the handles connect. Always check it carefully with a black light. Check it in good daylight. Look for hairlines, because if they're going to have a problem, that's typically where they happen. All right, but this thing had apparently none of that. It just had the damage to the lid. And often they don't even have the lids anymore because they've been lost or something. At any rate, somebody picked it up at $76.29. And you figure this teapot perfect is worth $400 or $500. All right, maybe a little more. Retail, $700 or $800 in a fancy shop. You know, in London, a good neighborhood in London, they can ask £1,000 for one of these things. Or Madison Avenue or something. But at any rate, here it is. $76, and you've got a great example, and you've got plenty of money left over to go out to dinner. Nice looking thing. And then there was this. This was from Astolito. He's a seller here in Massachusetts, down in Cambridge. I don't know as I've ever met him. He sells on eBay all the time. I think I can picture him. I think he's a fellow with a beard for some reason. I may be wrong. But at any rate, nice looking lot. And this was a curious lot because it ended up selling for a little over $700. And the best piece in the lot was this little double gourd, Jingbai Sung, very nice, very unusual, charming bit of porcelain. Here it is, 12th century. Love the little knobs on it and the swirl in the body. Somewhat complicated, somewhat rare. And he paired it up with the pot, which had, from what I could see, had repair to the handle. Here. You can see the color is a little bit different, and in here it had some restoration and so forth. And it's fine. I mean, it's an example, and those pots often have damage and repairs to them. It's very typical. Yeah, this is all repair work up in here. But the little side vase, this was just cool, and I don't see any repairs to that at all. And that was where all the money was. That was the object. Also, these double gourd little wine ewers typically have iron spots on them. This one didn't for some reason. I don't know why. Usually they do. Not always, not 100% of the time, but often they do. But the little double gourd was great. The whole thing went for $710, and all the money I think was on the little vase. I liked it a lot. And then over to this. This is something I came across when I was looking. I was going through eBay and I saw this, and I said, "What a beautiful apple green color! My goodness, that's very pretty." And at a glance, I wasn't even sure how old it was until I blew it up, and I saw this crackle and this grunge up in here in the foot. And I went, wow, that's an old piece of porcelain. That's an 18th century piece of porcelain, and it's got a really interesting glaze. This apple green crackle glaze, beautifully crackled. Good, crisp, sharp crackle, fading down into this brownish red copper treated lower section that thickens up enormously around the edge of the foot. You can see how thick it is here, and here, and here, and here. And then, but they did a good job cleaning it up, I have to say. And then here's the mouth of it here, and it looked like there might have been a little bit of a glazed lip, or it had a cover, a stopper in it at some point. But regardless, it ended up doing very well. It brought $2,394. It was around 6 inches tall, as I recall. But wow, great color, great form, and I bet it felt good in your hand. It looked like it's got some nice, solid heft to it. So, but it sort of spoke for itself. It's unusual and unique, and I like that a lot. And then over here to this, the old line, leave a bid. I had mentioned these last week, these sort of Art Deco Japanese bronze vases. I thought they were just very chic, very cool looking, just beautiful, beautiful, made to be accent pieces in a room. Just elegant, those big splayed bases tapering up to a very delicate, elegant neck and then flaring out with the little applique dragon handles on the sides, here and here, here and here. Those are coiled dragons coming down here, and there's the head. Just very cool. Somebody picked a pair up for $126 plus shipping. These were being sold over in the UK. The shipping from there to here was 32 pounds. I wouldn't have been surprised if these had sold for $600 or $650 or $700. I would have said, yeah, they're cool. I like them. I get it. I completely get it. Somebody got these for nothing. Well, somebody got a steal on these. If it's one of you out there, bless you. You leave a bid. Leave a bid. And this is the kind of thing that happens. You see things, you go, oh, they're going to do really well. Oh, those are cool looking. I'll never get. And you don't leave a bid, and then you see that it went for half of what you would have paid for them if you were given the choice in a shop. All right, those were great. Those were really cool. And whoever got them, good on you. That was a great thing to buy. And then over here to the photographs. We had talked about this last week because Chinese photographs are really come into their own, especially ones taken during the 1920s and 30s. These old Chinese photographs are absolutely sort of a thing these days. And they've been coming on stronger and stronger for the last 15 or 20 years. For a while, you could pick these old photographs that were done in these Hong Kong Photo Club is a big one, from the 1920s and 30s. I remember you could buy, not that long ago, in the 80s and early 90s, you could buy a folio of 20 of these for $100. No problem. They would turn up in auctions from people that had been in Hong Kong, especially here in New England. A lot of New Englanders that would go to Hong Kong on vacations or on their grand tour, and they'd come back they'd bring back albums from Hong Kong, and they'd bring back those famous lacquered albums of Japan. That you see the photo albums. Some of those are very valuable these days too. And but there was some great Chinese photographers back in the day, and they did these very nice silver gelatin bromide process photographs, and they sold them. They sold them to visitors, and those that bought them and left them to their families. If you go to sell them now, you can do pretty well with them. And this particular photograph did very, very well. It went for $1,165. And then there is this one, which was a little more detailed, went for $1,225. There were several others, and they all sold sort of in the $750, $800 to $1,000 range. These two are the most expensive. But keep your eye out for old Japanese, or old Chinese, Japanese too, but old Chinese photographs taken by Chinese photographers, especially if they're stamped with studio marks on them. All the different studios, or they have exhibition labels from having been shown at photo fairs. The photo fairs were a huge thing in the 1920s and 30s in Asia and in Europe. It was a big thing. And they're still around in closets. So if you see them, try to buy them. You'll find some that you like, you'll want to keep, and put them in a frame in your house away from it in a dark area. They don't get faded, and others you could sell and do well with. Because years ago I had an amazing collection that I bought. I was in Western Massachusetts one night, and there was a table and there was a folio filled with these things. And it was some wealthy family out in the Springfield area that had been over there, and I bought the whole lot for $50. And I ended up selling them. I had one. I threw it on eBay. This was 20 years ago. Threw it on eBay, and it went way up. Went up to like $800. It was a very special photographer. And within a day, I got a phone call from a man who is a Chinese-American gentleman that came here in the late 40s. And he was very successful. He owned a bunch of restaurants in the Boston and New York area. Anyway, he had retired, and he called me up and he wanted to buy all of them. And I said, we're going to have to buy them at the auction. And he said, fine. And I don't know what he left for bids, but he got every last one of them. And he was so excited he drove up and got them himself. He was a very, very kind man. And I knew at that point, I said, boy, this is going to become a thing. So ever since then, keep your eye out. And that was 15, 20 years ago. Keep your eye out for Chinese photos. I wish I'd hung on to them. But at any rate, that's always what dealers say. At any rate, let's see here. And then there was this sort of Liao glazed 18th, early 19th century pot with a cover about 10 inches diameter. I just thought this was charming, just the real deal. Nice provincial piece of pottery, good-looking dragon on it, gooey glaze, nice warm color, in good shape with its lid. And as I said, 10 inches wide, 9 inches tall, something like that. Sold for just $202. And I don't know how this guy does it. $10 in shipping from Illinois to here in New England. That's cheap. He must be losing money on that. Gotta be. You can't ship something like that for $10. Oh, amazing. And then on to this. This was a surprise for the week. I had looked at this last week and talked about it. And I thought, well, we'll bring $500 to $700 or something. $500 to $600. It's $550, $650. This thing ended up doing extremely well, and it may just be the monochrome fascination is really getting going here. Very, very nice looking, probably early 19th century or mid-19th century copper red piece. Sold for $1,594. Now, it is a table object. You always have to take that into account, the brush washer. But I didn't see it going that high. And boy, it did. It went for almost $1,600 from a seller in Smithville, Missouri. Or they say Missouri. I spent some time out there once. Nice, interesting area. Interesting people, fun people, good steakhouses too. Woo! And St. Joe, Missouri. They're great. There's a couple of great steakhouses in St. Joe. And there you have it. So $1,594. All right, that's kind of a surprise, but that's the market. And then on to this, the military rank badge. It's a tiger. It's either third or fourth rank. I think it's third rank. But anyway, nice looking one. 19th century, mid-19th century or so. Had a little bit of wear across the bottom and all that, but it's military. It's not a civilian rank badge. It's a military rank badge. So they're worth a little bit more. And the needlework on it was very good. The styling of it was very good. And ended up selling for $1,700 with 60 bids. A lot of people were interested in it. This was the seller Youngxi. He doesn't sell an awful lot of stuff, but he sold that, and nice looking. And then what's coming up over here? Oh yeah, this platter is finishing up on Katawiki on tomorrow, Saturday. If you like really nice Chinese export platters, you want to look at this. It's 38 centimeters in diameter, so it's good size, right? It's 17 inches and something like that in diameter, but very nicely decorated. Very nicely decorated. It's got this beautiful shaped rim with a little bit of brown dressing on it, and very artistically painted like a canvas. Just very nice composition. Really, really attractive composition with a good grade of cobalt. The blue on this was particularly nice. I love the way they swirled the groundwork in here with the lady with the child, the willow trees and all that, and people. A lot of people on this tray. You don't notice this platter until you really look at it. A couple of people here, a person there, people in the boats, people in this little studio off to the shore. Same on this side, more people. Another, just lots of activity. Another boat in the background, and there's some more people in the buildings here. Then you have these cool looking outcroppings, sort of boom, 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 going out like that. Like it. And it's right now it's just up to 144 pounds. It should bring 400 to 600, but we'll see. But it's being sold by a seller in Sweden, so it's probably in very nice condition. The shipping to the U.S. is only 55. That isn't bad. 55 euros. Reasonable. And then over to this. This is closing on Sunday. We talked about it, of course, last week. I actually heard from the fellow selling it because he apparently watches the videos and gets the newsletter, and he was happy we mentioned it. And I wrote him back and said, well, we mentioned it because it's a wonderful, cool thing. And it is we've heard from a few people that all think they agree that it is a republic. They all agree that it's rare as can be, and no doubt copied, a republic example done after a really good chin-lung piece. And as you know, it has some damage on the other side and whatnot, but boy, is it cool looking. And it's up to $8,200. I think some of our viewers bid on it because it was I think it was at $10 or something when it first went up or whatever, and it was up to $8,200 by the end of Saturday last week. And it sort of sat there ever since, which is pretty typical for these bid patterns. Don't expect it to stay there. I think at the end, I think a lot of people have seen this, and I think at the end this thing's going to jump because go find another one. And somebody's going to get it repaired and own something really interesting. And then over here, these so it'll be in the newsletter this week. And these will be in the newsletter this week. And those of you who don't know what these are knotters. And Chinese export knotters. And the reason they call them knotters is the heads. And I'm going to click through and find the picture that demonstrates. There it is. The heads come out and they move. They can be moved back and forth. They can nod. And these are good size. These are 16 inches tall each. They look to be in good condition. They look to be 19th century. And I think they're terrific. I've always liked these real great China trade stuff. They have those. They're 19th century as far as I can tell, but they have 18th century style bases on them, which is very traditional. The pink raised platform bases. Now the stands don't come with them. It was one of the first things I checked because I said, wow, the guy's including the stands. They are not included, but he does have a mention in there that if you buy them and you want to buy the stands separately, he'll try to work out something with you. I think he'd be willing to sell them. They're early 20th century stands, but they're beautifully done, absolutely beautifully done. They might be late 19th, but they look to be early 20th to me. But they're beautiful, beautiful stands, and they're probably worth $600 or $700, I would think, for the pair, somewhere in the 800. But at any rate, the dolls should do well. Expect them to bring in the $2,500 to $4,000 range, somewhere in there. Market will decide for you. And that's about it for the week. All right. So if you haven't subscribed to us yet here on YouTube, please do. As I mentioned before, we do these at least one a week, sometimes a couple a week, and a couple of videos each week. And there is now a button at the end of each video that we're doing that will let you sign up for the newsletter page for free and get notified when we update that page every Friday. As soon as we have all the stuff we found loaded into it, you'll be notified. And let you know about the weekly video that's gone up, and the global member pages. We've had a number of quite a few people join it because I think the part that's handy about it is that Bonhams and Christie's now are promoting their auctions on live auctioneers and stuff, which for some reason pulling in Bonhams stuff from live auctioneers instead of from their own site is easier. I think there's some sort of technical issues with how Bonhams does it because their site doesn't load very quickly. But there's a bunch of new things that we're finding, and but the live auctioneers and the invaluable pages are increasingly getting more polluted. So filtering out is getting tougher and tougher all the time, and that's what we do with the global pages. We look at everything before we put it on the page, so we're comfortable with it. Otherwise, we don't include it. Because people will ask me, why didn't you include this? And I'll say, because it's a copy. That's why we didn't include it. Especially the really great-looking, older-looking stuff that looks old and just isn't. That's the way it is. But at any rate, have a wonderful weekend. It's autumn here. It's almost 70 degrees. Beautiful, sunny day. Dry, nice. Very comfortable. And we'll see you all next week. And we'll be getting the Bottoms video out. And also remember to check that video on the newsletter page this week about the Yuan Delhi archaeological stuff. It's interesting. It's good to listen to, and they do a great job explaining it. All right. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.